real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. All right, we're back with you again, and it's Nathan Romas with you. And today we have Linda Miller from Milcun Training Center in Ontario, Canada. She is the Chief Executive Officer and Coaching Specialist at the center, and we'll be talking a bunch about firearms. So Linda has over 25 years of business experience, including consulting, business planning, management, marketing, and information systems. She has considerable experience in international small bore target shooting as a member of Canada's shooting team. She's won medals in the Commonwealth Games, Cuba World Cup, and Mexico World Cup. She was the first woman of only two to win the Ontario Lieutenant Governor's Medal for Shooting. And these competitions have a history of over 140 years, so quite the feat. In 2002, Linda competed in F class and was the top female provincially, nationally, and at the World Championships. We'll get a definition of F class in a little bit. She has also volunteered in local, provincial, and national shooting sports organizations. She does guest lecturing and provides courses to police, military, and civilians. And she's also authored several books, the latest of which, The Power of Mental Marksmanship, was released in January of 2010. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much, Nathan. That sounds so impressive. I want to meet me.
That's about a third of the accomplishments you have. So I was trying to figure out, what am I going to put in here? But I was like, oh, all of it sounds really important. So just had to kind of pick and choose a few things, and I'll let you do most of the talking about, the things you've been through. So
first, I want to say thank you, Nathan. I'm absolutely honored to be included on your podcast. You're doing God's work here, trying to reach out to ordinary folks and figure out how best to get involved in shooting sports as a sport and all of the stuff that comes with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
On your first request that you sent a lovely little outline of what I'm to talk about, and I really couldn't remember enough of it. I'm afraid Keith and I are both very much forward-looking, and so I'm so busy planning our next book, I've forgotten our last one, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But I put together a kind of an outline of how we got to here, and I can just embark on that if you'd like.
Yeah, well, if you wouldn't mind too, if you could kind of tell us about where you were born, and maybe if you have like a family history involved in shooting, like what kind of led you into this. So if you could kind of start at the beginning, give us a bit about yourself. That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, my very first exposure to shooting was my dad thought that his children, he had no specific gender in mind, all of his children should be able to do certain things in life, and one of them was shoot a gun, and one was go hunting. And he wasn't big into either of them, but he thought it was important. So my first shots were fired on something a lot of your listeners will recall fondly from their youth as well. It was a .22 Cooey, in my case a bolt action, and a little 410 shotgun. And Dad wasn't a big hunter. The area I grew up in was in northwestern Quebec in the mining district. And most people went hunting for deer and moose. And during the daytime, if they weren't snoozing, they were out looking for partridges. And it was very common for people to take a couple of weeks off. And at the end of the hunt, people would drive into town and they'd have their deer and moose, or at least the head of the moose and the bodies of the deer attached to the car in some way or other, and there'd be basically a parade downtown.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was a while ago. They don't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I found out kind of a little after the fact was that my dad was interested in target shooting. I didn't know that, but he used to impress people by shooting a 22 at a match, and it would be probably one of the larger headed matches, and would impress them all by being able to hit it so that it would light.
Like a match you would light a cigarette with.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in his case, it was probably one you'd light det cord, because his hobby was mining exploration, and they did some blasting and drilling and stuff. So he'd have that kind of equipment. But anyway, yeah. So then there was nothing in my life to do with target shooting until many years later. I was working in a job that was high pressure, and one of my friends said, "Come with me. You need to have something else to do that will relax you." And so he took me to a shooting range. That may seem counterintuitive, but it worked out really well.
Yeah.
The range was part of the Toronto Sportsman's Club, and they were very, very kind, very receptive. It was very much a male-dominated club, but they were so good with any newcomer. And they had me. They gave me a rifle, and they gave me some ammo, and they said, "Here's your shooting mat. Lie down here." And I had never heard of lying down to shoot. I had only ever shot standing and kneeling. I thought they were having me on. I thought it was a joke. And then I realized, no, everybody here is lying down to shoot. Mm-hmm. So I was in position, and what I later learned was called a prone position, and started shooting. And it seemed like about 5 minutes later, they said, "Okay, Linda, you're done. Time to go home."
Do you know what year roughly?
Oh, roughly 85, 86.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I thought that was awesome, because it was just like getting really engrossed in a good book where you don't know about the passage of time. Everything just feels right and good. And there it was. And I was completely relaxed, because I'd had this chance to focus on something so completely. Mm-hmm. And so I went back, once a week. They had it once a week, and I went back, and eventually they said, "Look, we're going to a competition. We want you to come." I said, "No, come on now. I'm not good enough for a competition." He said, No, you don't understand. The competition is a team competition. We can field 10 people on our team. We only have 7. The top 5 scores count. So you can come and shoot and enjoy, and don't worry about it. It'll all be fine. You'll be in, wherever you are, but you aren't going to replace anybody who has shot any better than you. Mm. That's a good way to get introduced to competition. And that's just awesome. So I went out. It was a lot of fun. I placed in the top 5, and I was hooked. Absolutely hooked.
Oh, and I like how you say that you went out there as like a thing to relax. And I've given this example on the podcast before. I go to my chiropractor, and the one time they were asking, what'd you do on the weekend? And I said, "Oh, I went out shooting." And they're like, "How's that relaxing?" And they think just the noise of the gun or something is startling. And I was like, "No, I'm relaxed when I'm out there. It's quiet, outside of the firearm, but it's quiet. You're talking to good people, and it's just good camaraderie around there."
Absolutely. It's a side of the shooting sport that only the insiders really understand. Mm-hmm. Very hard to explain that to an outsider, and that's one of the reasons I think that so many of us try very, very hard to get more people to experience it.
Yeah, and definitely there's so many different levels to it, right? There's different types of competitions. There's different things for skill levels. But so you got hooked, and this was at the Toronto Shooting Club, you said?
Toronto Sportsman's Club, Club. They did shooting and competitive casting.
So was this right in the middle of the city at that time? Or is it still, is shooting mostly taking place in rural areas?
At that time, Toronto Sportsmen's Association had ranges all over the city. They were mostly, they didn't own them. They were mostly ranges that were maintained by fire departments, industry, all kinds of folks just had a small private range in indoor range.
Okay.
And so Toronto Sportsmen's used whichever ones they could get their hands on. And the one I was using was within probably 5 minutes of where I lived, which was in the West End.
Mm-hmm.
And they had them all over all of the competitions, the team competitions we went to were all over town.
Well, and I think part of the reason that it's kind of maybe hurt the sport is you don't see that in the cities anymore. You know, everything's kind of been pushed out rural and like far out. So it's harder to get people motivated to drive half hour, an hour to get to a range.
Absolutely, especially when it's their first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get hooked. Where's your life go from there with the shooting?
Well, what happened then was I started going to several clubs. I was so hooked. I wanted more range time, so I joined a couple of other indoor clubs, and they all said no. The real action's at the outdoor clubs in the summertime. So I joined some outdoor clubs, and I just shot whatever events I could find. And within 2 or 3 years, I was a provincial champion and a national champion in what's called sporting rifle, which is kind of like a lightweight target rifle in 22 rimfire. And one of the events I went to was a national level of that. That's how you become a national champ. And the coaches from the Olympic style shooting, which was being held at the same location, came over and watched me. And one of them, Lois Wall, said to the national team manager, "Go look at this girl." And so they started talking to me and said, "You need to get into Olympic style shooting," which is the one that goes to World Cups and Commonwealth Games and Pan Am Games and eventually the Olympics. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And because I had joined these other clubs, I had actually met people who were shooting that kind of discipline and were going to these events. So I knew what they were talking about. And one of them, Sharon Bowes, was one of the most outstanding rifle shooters that this country has produced. And she adopted me, is the only way I can say it. She told me afterwards that she was not only inclined to coach and put back into the sport, as we all are, but she was having trouble. She had done incredibly well at age 17. She went to the Olympics. She came 7th, which was just unheard of for a newcomer. But she couldn't do it again. She couldn't put the pieces together.
Mm.
She once that she had a continuing dream where she would be in a closet all by herself with a jigsaw puzzle, and she had the whole thing all together, but there was one piece missing.
So is that like missing as in the Olympics, like she's looking to win, or is it just something in the training side of things?
Well, both. What she was missing was what was it that made it possible for her to shoot well? And if she could identify it, then could she call it up and make it happen on demand? And she couldn't figure out what that piece was.
Mm.
So she spent over a year, maybe a couple of years, with me, helping me develop my own process so that she might be able to find that piece. I don't believe she ever did, but boy, did she help me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the community, right? Is everyone's that I've seen at any of the ranges, everyone's very helpful and they want to talk about the firearms they have to the experiences they have. So that's pretty cool.
It's very cool. The other person that I met during that period of time and really, really put me on the road to coaching was a man named Jack Clinton. He was the assistant manager and really the only good coach that the national team had. And he could look at a person in a position and say, you need to move your middle finger over here or your toe over there or tilt your head this way. Just one little thing that would make all the difference. And he could see it. And I thought, what a marvelous skill. So anytime I had to be coaching on the same line that Jack Clinton was coaching, I would be there and I just soak everything up. I went to all the junior training camps. I ran the Ontario provincial team, and I took all of the Coaching Association of Canada courses and credits that I could to get properly certified and learn everything I could about coaching. And that turned out to be a big motivator for me. The only way I really wanted to put back into my sport was through coaching. I unfortunately was also a really good administrator, so I ended up doing quite a lot of that. And I was by then working as a management consultant, so I did a fair bit of that as well for my sport. But what I loved first and foremost was the coaching.
So has your main career always revolved around shooting sports to some degree?
My main career, the thing that paid the bills was everything to do with business. My favorite parts of being in business were always consulting. I really enjoyed that, and I think it reflects on the coaching. There's a great deal of coaching involved in consulting to business successfully. You have to be willing to say hard stuff with a smile on your face, and then give a fix, or not just walk away and be smug about, well, I got their number. No, you don't get their number until you've helped them fix it. And I really loved that part. So that was what paid the bills. And paid them very well. And then every time I had an opportunity to coach on the side, or if I could get an employer who was willing to support my efforts, then I'd take advantage of it.
And you said from your experience, because usually women aren't in these sports, they're not the majority of people going there. But is that what would be the kind of keeping people away from it and going into it? Is it just because historically women aren't usually the ones out carrying the firearms, or is there other kind of reasons why they might not be interested in it?
One of the things that I heard time and time again, I ran a Women's Day at the Range program for 10 years. And my aim there was to develop female range officers and female coaches. But to do that, of course, we had a whole bunch of newbies, females who had never been to a range, females who were scared of guns, females who had been to the range once with their husband, father, boyfriend, but wanted to see what it was really like and had been kind of intimidated by the original experience. So we had a lot of people come through. And the thing that I heard from them over and over again was, I just want to go and shoot and have fun. I don't want to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. I mean, I'm obviously, I don't go that way. I obviously love to compete, but I understand what they want. They want to go out and play. They want it to be a play item. And the way most ranges are set up, the way the practices are set up, the way the kinds of people that you find on the range often aren't there to play. They're there to do something that they think is serious and important.
Mm.
And that would suit women very well. On the other hand, I have to add, most of the Olympic sports are in Canada are fewer than 10% female, even though the international organizations have tried very hard to recruit women into the sport. But Canada hasn't tried that hard. They reduced the funding, they made the equipment harder to get, all kinds of stuff like that. Our club here at the Milcun Training Center, we run a club called the Operational Shooting Association. It is focused on not only operational type firearms, it is focused on operational type courses of fire. And I'm very happy to say that our female participation is in around a third, about 35%.
Oh, wow.
What's the difference? Why do we have way more attracted to our operational club than to Olympic sports? What's the difference? I think it's part in the personalities of people that we've allowed to join us here. We only want people who are keen to share whenever they're asked to share. We don't. I've told some people that they're not allowed to come back.
Oh, really?
Because they're here to pick up girls. The hell with you. I have no patience for that whatsoever. Go to some other place for that. Our girls are here because they're interested in their own vision of excellence in a particular firearms sport. And if you're not contributing to that, then you're not welcome.
Well, I would think there would be there's a million other places that would be better for that. Maybe places where you're not wearing ear protection and loud noises are going off. It's probably not conducive to conversation.
It could be.
But are most of these leagues were they always kind of separated by male female, or is it just you kind of go and you just take part?
In fact, almost all shooting until the Olympic level is mixed. The Olympic organization decided, 30 years ago or so, that one of the ways they would improve female participation is to separate the awards program. So you can go. In fact, in 1984, Linda Tom won a gold medal in pistol shooting at the Olympics in Los Angeles, and it was a very, very big deal because she's a female who won that. Meanwhile, and that one had been separated out, right? It was all women against women on the pistol range. On the shotgun range, however, they hadn't been separated out yet, and so it was all mixed female and male. And Susan Natras, who had been a champion many times over in trap, was now not happy because she could only win women's trap. She used to be able to win the whole thing over summers. So it was pluses and minuses about separating them out. One of the exposures I had that said, no, this is really, really a good thing was when I went to the Commonwealth Games in 1994, we won a lot of medals, the Canadian shooting team. And the biggest source of those medals was from the women, because it was the first time the Commonwealth Games had separated out the women. And so we had our own award set. So the women's small bore prone, the women's 3T prone, the women's air rifle, all had their own medal set. And so we did very well. The Canadian team did very, very well. The Canadian team also did well in the male sports, but didn't win as many medals.
Mm-hmm.
So the women's contribution to the medal count for the Canadian team was very, very high, and that gave us the best press we could probably expect, given that we're shooters in Canada.
So over the years, have you seen like a steady growth in females taking part in shooting competitions, or has it stayed the same, or maybe even decreased?
I would say it's probably about the same overall. I don't go out to very many other events except the ones that we run here. But just looking at the score list, the prize list, that sort of stuff, I'd say it's still incredibly male dominated. Mm-hmm. And I don't fault anyone for that. That is just a fact. And it makes it harder for women to enter because of that. And that's their mindset, not not the people that they would be joining. I remember learning years and years ago when I was taking some business course or other that they said that any visible minority won't feel like they belong until they have somewhere around 30% of a foothold. And so I think that's, it may not be the right number, but there's probably a number where you're just a minority until you reach this amount of mass, and then you're going.
Yeah, well, and there's so many. I see lots of the leagues now. Like I go out to a range here, and they have a women's league. But I wonder too, like you're saying about separating people at certain points, and then some other leagues that don't do that. I always kind of find that interesting. Like you have gyms, just a fitness gym, and they'll have a women's side, and then there's a men's side, and it's maybe some of the women don't feel comfortable being around the men. But I wonder too, in separating people, and this is just in general nowadays, we have certain spaces where certain groups of people aren't allowed to go now. And it's like, well, I don't know if segregation is the best idea. Like maybe there's a better way to teach people to work together. Kind of like you're saying, I think a big part of it is, and with your organization, is the type of people you're bringing in to be coaches. Obviously, people in positions of trust and authority, you have to be able to trust them and make sure they're there for the right reasons. So probably has a massive impact on whether people decide to come back or even come to your place at all in the beginning.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we have a reputation. Everybody in our little area and arena knows that Linda will fight like a tiger if she sees something going wrong, and if it has anything to do with other women, you're going to die. Yeah.
Well, and you're the person who could probably do that.
No, I'll use my claw.
So can you tell us a bit about the competitions you've been through? And in your bio, I mentioned F class, some of the F class shooting you did, but can you kind of explain maybe a few of the terms like F class or small bore for anybody who's listening, hasn't done any research on this stuff? And then just what things have you been a part of that really stand out in your mind?
Sure. The basic shooting disciplines are rifle and pistol. There are a bunch of other types of firearms that you can use, but basically it's either a rifle or a pistol. Within rifle, there's two fairly different categories. One is the 22 rimfire, which is usually called small bore, getting much more popular now because ammo is so hard to get and so expensive when you can find it.
Mm-hmm. And
the other is full bore, which is center fire, and most of the competitions are either in 308, such as target rifle, or they are in unlimited or open calibers, more efficient for long range. The F class falls in the latter group. There's a couple of different types. One is, in fact, a 308 revisited with a scope and a bipod and that sort of stuff. And the other is an open category, and it's any caliber pretty much that the range is licensed for. And the bipod is replaced with a machine front rest, and it's a very, very heavy gun. It's not one you would carry out in the field at all. It's very specialized for very tiny. Yeah, Keith is coaching me here. He says it's also sometimes called prone bench rest, because it's so catered to making small groups. That's its number one mission.
Okay.
So I have shot all of those at one time or another. My fondest memories are probably in small bore. There's a prone competition as well as a 3-position prone, kneeling, and standing competition, and it's supplemented in most competitions with a standing air rifle, a 177 air rifle. very, very demanding, really, really tiny, impossibly tiny targets for the type of competition it is, but very rewarding as well. And of course, it's the one that you can go to international competitions in without any problem at all. You have to do the work, but there's lots of them.
Are you talking like crossing borders with the firearm, and depending on the country, they got all their different rules and what you can bring in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's gotten to be more of a challenge. It used to be easy to go between Canada and the States. You didn't really need very much in the way of paperwork or proof of intent or anything like that to take rifles in. You need a little bit for a pistol, but it wasn't a big deal. After 9/11, they 9/11, they tightened everything up, both outbound from Canada as well as inbound to the States. It's very difficult quite quickly, and they didn't have a smooth process. It's since actually gotten easier because they've smoothed out the process. They've realized that one competitor taking 2 guns down to Georgia to shoot a World Cup isn't a threat, and doesn't need the same degree of paperwork and observation that somebody importing a trainload might need.
Well, and
so
I'd imagine that they got way bigger guns and full auto in some of those states, and they're worried about a 22.
a 22 rimfire, yes, but there were other countries prior to 9/11 that had very strict regulations, mainly because their own citizens weren't allowed to have arms. So when we went to Mexico City to shoot a World Cup, we were greeted by the military. We were asked to surrender our guns and our passports, and it just went on and on. There were other places like that. That was the one that really struck me. Havana, Cuba, that was another one. It had very, very, very tight regulations and very difficult to get in. In Havana, I very nearly didn't get in. My coach and my guns were on one side of the border, and I was on the other. And they weren't happy with me because I don't know. I think I had changed my glasses, or maybe gone from glasses to contacts or something. It didn't look right to them, So, yeah.
They should see driver's licenses now. You never get in
there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and in those days, you needed a passport internationally, but you didn't need a passport to go to the States.
Mm-hmm.
Just your ordinary driver's license, and if you ever wanted to get your guns back into Canada, then you probably want a green card. But that was easy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the places you've been? So, you've been Cuba, Mexico. Have you traveled anywhere else for competitions, whether shooting or coaching?
Most of my travel was actually business travel. I consulted all over the world. My favorite places were probably, in both cases, I've shot, coached, and consulted in Australia, and that's probably my favorite place in the whole world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We Sweden, yes, we we had a nice trip to Sweden, taking the CISM team. That's the
International Sports and Military.
Yeah, it's a military sports team. It's a military sports event that is very much like an Olympics for military people.
Okay.
And I was coach for that team, and Sweden was a lovely destination. I liked it a lot.
So, how do you get involved in the military team?
That one, I think it was originally through the small bore and then through Keith, because I was already fairly well known. That was, when was that? That was the mid-90s, I guess. I was already fairly well known as a qualified small bore coach, and they had a small bore team. But they asked me, because Keith prevailed on them, they asked me to coach the pistol team, which was hilarious because I had, I did have coaching credentials for pistol, but nothing like my small bore credentials.
Mm-hmm.
And 3P full bore. That's right. They asked me to coach that. But the guy I actually spent most of my time with was a small bore guy.
Okay.
He's a relatively new team, and he was very fragile emotionally and didn't have a lot of technical knowledge. So I spent quite a bit of time with him and coached him to a personal best. I coached Keith to a personal best in full bore at that one. I don't think I did that much for the pistol team.
When you go over as and you're consulting, what exactly are you doing like as a consultant? And is this where it kind of gets into most of the mental management of things?
I didn't mean to imply that I consulted to the teams. I coached for the teams. I consulted when I went on trips.
Okay.
I did consulting for sports organizations, but that wasn't part of, trips to games and things like that. That was on the ground, usually right here in Canada.
Oh, okay.
But so the consulting didn't travel with the team.
So if we talk about your consulting side of things, what are you consulting with people on?
Currently, I am not doing any consulting on purpose. I've tried very hard to get a step away from everybody else's business and focus just on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So our own business is all about shooting, both professionals such as yourself as well as competition shooters. But I don't do any business consulting anymore unless I'm forced into it. It comes through though, because we are often asked to do custom courses, and usually what we find when we talk about what they want, it's what they can defend to the boss. But what they need is usually some very basic fundamentals in technical skill and a whole lot of mental skill. And it's not that they don't necessarily have the mental skill. It's often that they don't realize that this is one of this shooting sports or professional shooting. This is where you need to apply what you can do in your mental skills. So we give them techniques that demonstrate to them, okay, here's where you use this tool. Okay, now we're going to play a game where you get to use this tool and shoot some shots. That kind of stuff. So they start to understand the application of mental skill to the shooting process. And
this is with police organizations and military?
Police, military, and competition shooters.
And competition, okay.
We did one for an archery club. They had a great junior program. They're up near North Bay. They had which is in Northern Ontario. They had a great junior program, and they had lots of juniors going to pretty serious level competition, and they were afraid the juniors they were good technically, but maybe didn't have all the mental skills to keep themselves together and show how good they could be technically. That old, on demand kind of thing. And so we designed a mental training course for them, specifically for them, that would suit both the adults but especially the juniors in the club. And we had a wonderful weekend with them. But we've done the mental training for a lot of military teams, because there have been quite a few teams, both at the smaller levels as well as at the national level, regimental or brigade level groups, as well as the national teams that go to Bisley and other things like that's one of the places that Australia peaked up again in my life, was that we took a military competition team to Australia. And we took them several times to Bisley, England, which is kind of the mecca of that type of. And we spent a lot of time on the mental side of stuff with them.
When you're doing, you're working on the mental side, what does that kind of look like? Can you kind of walk us through a bit of the process, what you focus on or what you're telling people?
What we try to do is to get them to examine themselves first and figure out what things are they doing that are helping them and what things are they doing that are risking their own abilities to perform well. And one of the things we find, and it's true of all the groups, but it's absolutely Crayola clear with police groups, is that they like to say negative things about themselves and each other. So one of the big examples is the guy who does something wrong. He hears about it, and then everybody else talks about it for days and days and days. Teases them. Oh, it's all in good fun. Oh, we're brothers. La la la. Until somebody else does something wrong, and so they start in on him. Now, being that I'm a female and I have a good relationship with our police students, and I try to present as a mother figure to them so that they will feel comfortable telling me anything. I have had cops come up to me and say, you're right. Not only does it not do the person who's being victimized by this any good, it hurts all of the group because they're hearing it over and over again. And he says, you know what? I've been at the wrong end of that one, and it really hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. So much for the Blue Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Get a grip, guys. Yeah. So we got to get that turned around. So one of the things we do is that if anybody says anything that starts smacking of that going in that direction, I give them a look, and Keith says, "You got a better way of saying that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's definitely the we'll call it not maybe hazing, but there's a lot of that in our job.
Yeah, there is, and it's not making you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions one of our assistant coaches asks, and bless his heart, I've tried to start asking it as well, is what do you want more of? What is it that you want more of that will lead you to a better place, a better performance, better, stronger capabilities? What is it you want more of? Do you think any of that crap hits that list?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's all detrimental. It's not even close to what's advertised. It doesn't help the Blue Brotherhood at all. It harms every one of you. So we try to get rid of that.
So has anybody ever followed up with you after you put on a course or helped them in any way and said, this has had a big impact in their life, whether it's professionally or maybe even some of this stuff that you're teaching them shooting firearms translates into their personal life? Have you ever had that?
Yes, many times.
Mm-hmm.
Two quick examples. One is we were teaching an RCMP course, and all RCMP guys, all that knew each other, all of the headquarters sniper group. And the one fella said, can you give me some advice? I coach a really junior hockey team, like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, something like that, real youngsters. Maybe a little older than that, maybe 7, 8, 9, something like that. I said they've never had a goal all season. They've never had a goal, and it's hard to keep them enthusiastic. But we know for sure that if they don't have the enthusiasm, no goals are coming soon, right? So he said, "What can we do?" So Keith said to him, "Well, here's what you need to do." He says, "I don't know anything about hockey, so bear with me and make the example right for your age group. You need to have a plan. The kids need to have a plan. Just one plan. So Joey's going to pass from the blue line to the wherever to Jimmy, and Jimmy's then going to pass across the ice over to Todd, and Todd is going. By then, Mike will be in the lineup to make the goal, and Todd's going to pass to Mike, and Mike's going to take a shot on net. Simple, like 5 moves, and it may not work every time, but at least they have a plan. They know what they're doing, and they understand how it's supposed to work. So that's what he did. He went in with one plan. That team got their first goal ever.
Wow.
And it's all in the mind. They had the skills. They just didn't have the brains organized, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other one was a very much more recent one. It was a policewoman who came on our police sniper course. I guess just sniper one. We do 2 courses. One is learn the skills, and 2 is we're going to test the daylights out of you, and you're going to be challenged beyond belief. I think it was the very first one. And one of the things that we talk about there is self-talk. It's that little voice in your head that describes to you what you and the universe, how you're related, how you navigate in the world, what you do and think about yourself, that kind of stuff. You know, that little voice?
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes that little voice is helpful and sometimes it is not. And so you need to figure out, you need to listen to it, actively listen to it, figure out what in that little voice is helping you and what little in that little voice is hindering you. Because some of those things were put in your brain when you were 2 or 3 years old. You don't need them helping you anymore. They've outlived their usefulness. They're keeping you from growing, and you need to get rid of them. You need to replace them with things that will help you. Very much like this, what do you want more of? So this young lady at the end of and we do a fair bit of work on getting that replacement to work. We do some written work, we do some oral work, we do some work on the range to help people understand what it is they need to fill their brains with in order to perform well and how they control that process. You're in charge of what's in your brain. So, you know, let's give it some good material. At the end of the course, we have a debrief, and the question of the debrief is, what is it that happened to you this week that you want to remember forever, do again next time? What was important to you? Did anything turn a little light on for you? And she said it was that self-talk. She said, I never realized that my self-talk was saying that it's unusual for a woman to be able to be a sniper.
Yeah.
So I heard and I changed it. And thank you. Because it's true of anything. It's not just a woman. It's not just a sniper. That voice in your head is controlling how far you can leap. And you need to know what it's doing for you or not for you.
I find it all, everything kind of seems to be interconnected with mental management, mental health, and even doing martial arts growing up as a kid. And, whatever percent people want to put on, but it's like 90% of it's mental.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff I do on the day-to-day, mental.
Oh, man.
But people, I think, just being human beings, most of what we sense is through our eyes. So if we can't see it, we can't really believe it, or we can't understand it. So it's such a disconnect from the way people think. And it seems like it's, maybe in the last 10 years, there's been a big push toward really thinking about the brain and how it works and how people function and operate. But yeah, a lot of the stuff you're saying is kind of resonating with me. One of the things I was wondering too is, speaking about, having that little voice in your head from way back when, do you run any courses for kids?
Not specifically for kids, but we do have kids. 13 is usually about the point where they're interested in this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And 13 is when they can get their firearms, their junior firearms license. So that's usually about when we pick up with the kids. If the parents bring them earlier than that, that's great. But we don't have any specific, outreach for Munchkins kind of programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen like the odd course for kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I couldn't tell you what age it started at. I've read like a paragraph or two on some of the courses, but I thought, and in speaking with some people who've been on the program, that, it's probably one of the more unique and interesting things to get into. Vast majority of kids are going to play basketball, play hockey, whatever it might be, your big four sports. But to get into something that's really distinct and unique, and also translates into a lot of life skills down the road, I just thought, shooting sports, there's competition in it, there's camaraderie, learning how to be calm in high stress situations. And as much as it's a team sport, there's also a very big individual component to it. So I feel like it kind of covers all the bases of making you a well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much. In fact, I did. I was involved as a coach with the Durham Regional Elite Athlete Program, and I did a seminar for the entire program, which was probably a couple of hundred kids. And it's one of these situations where you got a broad range of interests and ages, and what are you going to do that will help reach out to all of them? So I talked to them about stress. There was a very high percentage of them that thought that they were having to endure a great deal of stress, and a lot of them were quite worried about it because they didn't feel they had the tools to deal with it. So I said, well, the first thing is let's measure the stress. Let's find out whether what you're dealing with is unique to you or unique to everyone, or is it something that as you age, you will gradually get better at, or is it something you need a tool for? So I just used a standard test that said, here's how you measure the general stress in your life, and here's a number we can put to it. And if your number falls in this range, then probably life is quite normal for you. And don't panic. We have things to make you more comfortable, but you don't need treatment.
Yeah.
Teenagers are quick to think they need treatment because it's all new to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and that really helped that group. But it was an unusual group of kids because they were all elite athletes. They weren't all shooters, but they were all in some elite athlete program. And that, so then we just talked to them about, okay, what your standard level of stress is versus the situational stress that you might feel in a competition or in any kind of situation where you've got to produce. And we talked then about the tools that you could use, things like combat breathing, things like relaxation techniques, that sort of stuff. Standard sports fare for budding athletes.
One of the things I was kind of wondering too was, have you ever had any strange requests? So you do a lot of consulting, or used to do consulting, and even now with your current business, do you ever get asked to work on movies, or I guess consult for that, or teach people how to shoot properly if they're making a movie about a sniper, say?
No.
No, nothing's ever come up.
We've had requests from movie people, but not for that. But I think most movie people think they have their experts, and we know some of them, and some of them genuinely know their stuff, but they tell the movie people what to do, and the movie people do something else.
Yeah.
So we have very little interest in getting involved because we wouldn't like that.
Well, I just
don't want wrong.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think too, a punch in real life doesn't translate well onto screen. Like you wouldn't see it happen or something. So yeah, they definitely kind of glamorize certain parts of it or do up other parts. So it's not, if you're looking for the authenticity, it's definitely not in movies.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, when we teach our snipers the fundamentals, we bring in examples of movies that don't do it right, and tell them they need to keep an eye out. Both the news media as well as the movies, they're all fiction.
Mm-hmm.
They're all put a light on a certain way. So see if you can pick out what's fact and what's not.
So maybe we could talk a bit about your current business.
Sure.
With Milcun. Can you kind of tell us a bit about how you started that and kind of where it's grown to today?
Okay, so in 1994, I was at the Commonwealth Games, and so was Keith. We had never met because he was in a completely different segment of the shooting sport. And we did meet there, though, because the Canadian team is all one team. And at some point, we were talking about what we'd like to do, and said something about I'd like a property big enough to get lost in. And Keith was thinking, that'd be about the right size to build a range. And so it just got worse from there, honestly, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
So Keith is, you've met Keith now. You did the podcast with him last week, and he's a driver, and you may have noticed from so far today, I'm a driver as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we like to get things done. And Keith, there were several things I noticed about him right away, other than the fact that he was a shooter and a darn good one. One was that he was a great storyteller. Everything he did, he told a story about. Every time he wanted to get anything across, there was a story. And I thought, this is a skill I'd like to have. I wonder if I can learn it just by, listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then within a couple, I guess the year after the Commonwealth Games, we went to the provincial full-bore rifle championship. And Keith was competing, and I had no role there other than to, just the arm candy. And he said, "You're acting as my coach." Well, don't tell me I have a job and then don't let me do it. So I was doing my darndest to coach him with the skills that I had that it would apply to his game. And of course, that's almost all mental because the technical side of that game is considerably different from my area of expertise. So at the end of that, he had some challenges during that match. It was a 3-day match, and the first day he got totally distracted and didn't do well in one of the matches, and had to be kind of brought back from that and refocused and set out again. And then there was another big distraction during the other matches, and it just went on. And I felt like I was, I had a dog on one of the springy leashes, and I couldn't always pull hard enough. And anyway, at the end of the 3 days, he won the championship, and it's a pretty big deal. So he said, we should write a story about this. So we each sat down with a computer at opposite ends of the house and wrote out our view of what happened over those 3 days. And then we swapped papers. And it was a wonderful mirror image, each of us, what we had learned and the way we viewed what had gone on. And so we submitted it to Precision Shooting magazine. And Dave Brennan, bless his heart, he was the editor at the time, he said, "This is among the finest writing in the sport I have ever seen." And he published it. And that was kind of the beginning of us working together as authors, as coaches, as realizing that we had something we could work on here. So we immediately started looking for property. Finding a property that you can have a range on in Ontario is kind of a big challenge because there's almost nothing that's clear that isn't farmers' fields, and you can't put ranges on farmers' fields.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get approvals for ranges in most places in this province. It's very, very challenging. I drool when I see my friends out in Alberta who, put a range out in the middle of a between two mountain ranges. I don't know. It's just long distances, and there's no trees, and oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Our biggest range is 600 meters, and there's trees everywhere. In fact, we have people in here today trying to cut them back to keep them from growing in on the range. So we started looking for property. We spent a couple of years. We finally found something. We bought it, and then we started trying to put in ranges, and it was a fairly long process to make it all happen. Through that time, I guess in about 2001, I quit working in Toronto and came up here full time. So Keith had been doing all this by himself with the only, a little bit of help from me sometimes on the weekends when we weren't at a shooting match. And most of my salary going towards, paying for the property. And so in 2001, we were both here, and then could really start doing stuff. I didn't have to take vacation days to run a course. This was my job, and so that worked out really well. We spent probably the next 15 years just trying to grow the business. We got really, really good relationship with the cops and the competition shooters. Of course, all knew us from our competition days, but the cops was a bit harder. They had to learn to trust us, and that just took some time. But it worked. It worked. We had enough offer, and so we ended up with a wonderful little business. And on the side, we both like writing. So I had written the Wind book for rifle shooters pretty much by myself with Keith's help to make sure I got it right. But it was mainly so that I knew I could figure out whether or not I really understood reading the Wind. And that turned into a classic among competition shooters. The next one was The Secrets of Mental Marksmanship. And that one is annually very popular. And in the middle of that somewhere, we went to a seminar. Have you ever heard of Dave Grossman?
Oh yeah.
He's, of course, the author of On Combat and On Killing.
On Killing, yeah.
As well as many other books. He's also the guy that goes all over the world, but especially on this continent, doing the Bulletproof Mind seminar for police and military. And one of our friends had organized him to come and speak to the federal penitentiary guys. And he asked us if we'd like to come down and hear that lecture. And we said, yeah. And so we went down, and our friend said, I'm really sorry, but I can't take Mr. Grossman, Colonel Grossman, out for dinner on Saturday night, and I should be doing that. He said, would you mind very much taking him out for me? And we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So we took him out for dinner, and we brought him a couple of our books, and had an outstanding time. He really is the real deal. I mean, he doesn't have two personalities. He has one. What you see in the Bulletproof Mind seminar is solid Colonel Grossman. About a year or so later, he said, emailed us and said, do you guys, I'm thinking about taking my son on a shooting vacation. Do you guys have a safari course? And we said, yeah, sure, we have a safari course. And then we started going to every place we could go to learn about safaris and what the people that run them think and what they want their hunters to come with, what skills and knowledge and stuff like that. We went all over the place and had a great time doing it. And Keith won a safari trip, so we had to go on that, and so it went all very well. But in the end, the reason I'm bringing the thread up at all is that in the end, after we had the safari course for Dave Grossman, he said, I'm going to make you rich and famous. And I said, I don't much care about famous, but rich I can latch on to.
Yeah.
And so what the upshot of that was that he asked us to write a book that is being called On Hunting. And it's he's really, honestly, I did all the writing except for some very specific parts of it that he did and Keith did. But it's very much a Linda book in every way except that Colonel Grossman is the big name here, so we're going to use his name. Keith is the great storyteller, so we're going to use his great stories. And I kind of put all the pieces together that knitted it. But that book, we're going down to do the audio version in January. And that book is on pre-order at Amazon right now. So we're thrilled to bits. It's kind of my whole career actually started in writing. When I was 5 years old, I wrote a local newspaper for our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, the last thing I'm going to do when I'm 101 years old, which is the target, is put a the end at the end of my last book.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was one of the things I was going to ask is, so the book, the On Hunting, will be coming. Is the book itself out right now, and then you're just recording the audio?
No, it's the book's on pre-order, so it'll be out in March.
Pre-order. Okay.
And we'll be doing the audio, trying to get ahead of publishing as much as we can.
And are your other books? Usually I ask this at the end, but since we're already talking about all that now, are your other books available on Amazon, or is there a better place to find them?
No, Amazon is the best place to find them. You'll see there that Secrets of Mental Marksmanship is in fact published by Dave Grossman now, because our original publisher, Paladin Press, went out of business. But you can get it directly from Dave's office or through Amazon. Just handier to look in Amazon.
All right. Well, is there anything you think we didn't get to? I'm kind of looking through the list here of the topics, and I think we touched on everything. We got into more in depth on a lot of stuff. Very interested in your business and the courses that you guys put on. And at the when we do put up your episode, we'll put up a link to your website so people can check that out. But was there anything else you think we missed?
Probably, but I think we've covered enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I can ask a lot more questions, but I think the biggest thing that we were talking about that I kind of got out of this was just kind of focusing on, one, the mental management side of things, but also just being a good person and trying to be a good coach or trainer or teammate. So whatever it might be, whatever your discipline is, just trying to be a good person. Yeah.
Yeah. You really need to have you on your side. I remember somebody said to me when I was quite young, if you're not your own best friend, who the hell else will be?
Yeah. Well, that's good advice.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I'll finish the recording here. If you could just hang on the line for a minute, and I'll say bye offline.
Terrific. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.